Let's talk about why trucks have become a fashion statement and aren't really being used correctly.
Have you ever noticed that there's a lot of rich people that like to pretend to be poor people or working class people?
20 to 30 years ago, the truck in front was what you'd see on average. Today, the truck in the back is more common to what you'll see, or a Tacoma full-sized pickup truck. The user states the beds are roughly the same size, but to be clear, the larger truck has a bigger hauling weight and a larger payload weight. But most people that buy these trucks are masquerading as cowboys. From Edwards, we see that 75% of truck owners use their truck for towing only one time a year or less, meaning mostly never. 70% of them go off-road one time a year or less. This would indicate a lot of the people buying these trucks are buying them as a fashion statement. And trucks have a 25% profit margin on around $45,000 of revenue, while cars have a $22,000 revenue with a 10% profit margin. Car manufacturers are pushing trucks, and fake wannabe cowboys for clout are buying them up. For the few people that actually need these trucks, I support you. The rest of you are being weird, cringe cowboy wannabes.
So this TikTok by Case Mation points out very clearly the simple fact that not only are trucks getting much bigger, but that it's fundamentally unnecessary. The reality is trucks don't need to be as big as they are. And there are many components to this. The first component is the fact that there are a lot of wealthy individuals who are like business owners, who are landlords, you name it. They make a lot of money. But they like to LARP as though they are poor people. They really like to pretend to be working class folks. You know, you'll have somebody who owns a farm that other people work on that will call themselves a farmer when really they're just a landlord. But they'll drive a big truck to prove what a hardcore farmer they are. And that type of mentality is on one level deeply hilarious, but on another level, it's actually very dangerous for two big reasons. The first big reason is the fact that because these trucks are so large, they are actually leading to a significant increase in deaths as a result of car accidents. Quite literally, they are making car accidents, especially with pedestrians, more deadly, where the visibility on these vehicles is so low that not only do children regularly get hit by these cars, but also grown adults now are very often below the line of sight if they're too close to these trucks. And so you can get a lot of pedestrians and bicyclers that get hit by these trucks. And because the trucks are larger, you are more likely to go under the vehicle than you are to go over the vehicle. Quite literally making these far more deadly vehicles than before. Realistically, in my opinion, they should be outwardly illegal. Like straight up, it should not be legal to have a vehicle where the front of the vehicle is taller than like the average person. Unless, of course, it's something like a semi-truck or an industrial like work vehicle or something like that. But then he also points out that most people don't need this. It's all part of this tough guy aesthetic, which I think as a trans woman is deeply hilarious because you have these right-wingers that complain about gender affirmation when it comes to trans people, but then will literally spend tens of thousands of dollars on a gender-affirming vehicle for themselves, which is really what they are, because they're not using these trucks as work vehicles, as evidenced by the data. 75% of these people fundamentally are not towing anything, they're not shipping anything major, they just want to drive around in a big truck because it makes them feel like a big special boy. But it turns out that the big special boy economy is having a very detrimental effect on society in two layers. One, the profit margins on these trucks are much higher, which really just means that the people buying these trucks are effectively getting scammed. They could be buying a more efficient vehicle, not only for fuel efficiency, but also efficiency in terms of what their dollars actually get them. By buying these ridiculous trucks, they're just feeding in the profit margins of these giant companies. But then there's also the disastrous impact that it has on the environment, because it requires a lot more material to make a much bigger truck, and that more material has to come from somewhere, which means that poor people around the world are forced to work at incredibly low wages to dig minerals out of the ground to put into these vehicles, while these vehicles also then have to use even more fuel to lug around all of that heavy material, all for what? So somebody can commute to work as an accountant and pretend to be some sort of cowboy? But this is where capitalism brings us. We have something that is incredibly wasteful, deeply unnecessary, and also literally deadly. But because advertisers have convinced a lot of, particularly men in our society, that driving this truck will make them a big special boy, we waste countless resources and hundreds of thousands, if not honestly billions of dollars economically as a country, all while destroying the planet just for that. Truly, capitalism cannot possibly be a less efficient or more embarrassing system to have. I mean, seriously, the big special boy market is absolutely destroying vehicles, and it's honestly ruining our infrastructure, because we simply as a society, if we want to continue to exist and prevent climate change, not only cannot have these ridiculous oversized trucks, but also need to go in the opposite direction and invest heavily in high-speed rail, because fundamentally our highway system across the country is not economical and it's not environmentally sound. And what's even worse is the suburban development of roads. It turns out that when you have a lot of people living in such a sparsed out way, that fundamentally suburban neighborhoods are insolvent and cannot even afford to keep their roads paved or their sewer systems maintained. And so, not only do individuals take out an extreme amount of debt to buy these vehicles for themselves, but cities and counties across the country are in an extreme amount of debt, maintaining the infrastructure for everybody to drive around in their trucks that makes them feel like a big special boy. What a great economy we have here. And I was told that capitalism was supposed to be a rational system of economic actors, using market logic to bring efficiency to the economy.